This podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's new Patreon community, the Global Coffee Think Tank. Check the show notes or head to patreon.com/mapperforward to find out how you can become a member today. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and we are joined for episode 3 of a 5-part series with André Eiermann. Welcome back, André.
Yep.
We are talking about Starbucks. We're talking particularly about the intersectionality that Starbucks has between the commercial industry and the specialty industry. And Starbucks is getting a few things right there. What can we as an industry, the specialty coffee industry, learn from the commercial industry?
I believe there is lots to learn from the commercial coffee roasters. First of all, when I'm looking at how much the biggest roasters in the world invest in scientific research, that is really what we can learn from them. When you look at Nestle, when you look at JDE, when you look at Illy, when you look at Starbucks, how much money they invest in research and development, and even fundamental research, that's truly amazing. Unfortunately, most of their research doesn't get published because obviously they do it to make their coffees taste better or to get a better understanding of coffee. That is a little bit the downside. But the insights they have about coffee is just tremendous and really makes sense to go and try to join coffee forums and to access and to drain their brain, because what they know about coffee is truly amazing. That is one thing. When I'm looking, for example, there was a RICO symposium and a speech given by Professor Charles Spence. He has been working with several of those big roasters, creating outstanding coffee shop experiences or retail shop experiences. It's a lot that they invest creating an experience by choosing the right furniture, the right colors, the right music, the tones, just to create this outstanding moment. So that's another thing. And it's really about hospitality, where the big roasters are good at. And one more thing, it's about consistency. This is impressive. They are really focusing not on making one cup the best cup ever, but then you cannot reproduce. They are looking at the one cup that fits the needs of the majority of the clients. And then it's about getting that quality out into the cup of any customers again and again and again and again, regardless of who stands behind the machine. And this is both when it comes to the coffee shop, whoever pushes the button, but also home brewing. Whoever pushes the button of a capsule machine, whether it's myself or my 4-year-old son, the cup quality will be the same. And to eliminate the human factor of making a coffee taste great or bad in a home environment, to have this consistent cup, I think is also important.
Now, some would say that it's that difference that defines the difference between a specialty cafe and a commercial cafe. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe when you look at even specialty coffee shops, your returning customers, they don't only come for one cup a day. It's very common that your regular customers, they come 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times a day. And I strongly believe that they want to have the same great tasting coffee again and again and again. And it's not very cool. You go in the morning and you go by yourself. You have the most outstanding flat white ever in your life. Latte art looks amazing. Texture of the milk, super creamy, smooth, perfect. and taste out of this world. And then you go to the office and you tell all your friends, listen, I went to this cafe and it was outstanding, let's go. And then in the afternoon, there is another barista, and you get maybe the most frothy milk ever in your life. And the espresso was completely over extracted. And you're like, what happened here? It's like day and night. So I believe even in the specialty coffee environment, consistency is very important.
And this is where a business runs into a bit of danger when people are coming and saying, no, I would rather my coffee be made by Andre than Lee because Andre makes better coffee at this cafe. And then when Andre moves on to another cafe, the cafe loses business because now they have to drink Lee's coffee. It becomes a real problem, right? Whereas commercial cafes don't have that kind of a problem when they focus on consistency.
I fully agree. I mean, it's great to hear that one barista is outstanding. I mean, that's really cool. And within a specialty coffee shop, I would then make this brilliant barista maybe the trainer barista that you teach, and then he will share his knowledge with the others. But it's important that this outstanding barista shares, I wouldn't call the secrets, because at the end of the day, it's not rocket science to make a coffee, but shares what he does differently. And then you can agree, those are the new set standards. So everybody can deliver the same quality. I think that's important. And of course, in specialty coffee, we have maybe outstanding coffees, and you can prepare flights and taste experiences. And I think that's where you can experiment with. But when it comes to the daily coffee and some of the regulars that come 3 or 4 times, it's key to deliver a consistent in-cup quality.
Are we overcomplicating things in specialty coffee, do you think?
Maybe a bit. At the end of the day, it's coffee, and it's a natural product. So it's normal that you will have slight variations. And it happened to me that I've been waiting in a coffee shop for half an hour for the perfect pour over. What is the perfect pour over? The poor barista was preparing the coffee because they obviously must have seen that it was me, and they started to pour the first. They checked the TDS, wasn't according to the standards, brewed another one, wasn't according, a third one, a fourth one. And I just wanted to have a cup of coffee. They don't know what's my personal preference. So I believe we overcomplicate. It happened to me here in Australia. Again, I just wanted the coffee, and they recognized me, and they said, for you, we have a special single origin from Ethiopia. We know you like East African coffees. I said, yeah, that's fine. So the barista made the first one, obviously short time too fast. She said, I will make you a second one. Then she made a second one. She said, no, it's not yet good enough for you. I said, what do you know? What is good enough for me? Let's just have that coffee. And if the short time is too short, just let some more water run through the coffee. I like acidic coffee. I think we overcomplicate things. I also believe it's not the barista who is the rock star. We should not forget coffee has its origin at origin, and we should be fair along the entire value chain. And without the barista, without the farmer and the picker and the person who is processing the coffee doing an outstanding job, we couldn't deliver the quality that we would want to look like a rock star if you absolutely want to do that. So that is another thing. It's not only we are overcomplicating, we are trying to get all the glory in a coffee shop from maybe what other people contributed to that outstanding cup quality.
I couldn't agree more. And I have a real conundrum in the way that I'm thinking about that at the moment, because in the way that I'm examining other industries, let's say somebody goes into a restaurant and orders ricotta hotcakes. At a very famous restaurant here in Sydney called Bill's, they have a dish called ricotta hotcakes. And people come from all over the world to eat these ricotta hotcakes. There was a time, and my second job as a barista was at Bill's, and there was a time when hurricanes had wiped out banana farmers in far northeast Queensland. And because of that, a box of bananas was more than $100. And this plate had a whole banana in it. It was cut in half, and it was put in there. The dish was beautiful. The situation was so dire that we had to put a sign for about 2 weeks on the front of Bill's every time we went home, saying that there were no bananas kept on premises, because one night somebody broke down the glass to try and stole our bananas. So we no longer could hold bananas on the premises. When we would talk to customers about the bananas, never once did they mention the banana farmer. They were so impressed that we could get access to the bananas. They were impressed that they were eating the bananas because they couldn't afford to buy bananas for home. So people started coming to Bill's and ordering the ricotta hotcakes because it was so much more fancier than it used to be, because it still had the bananas in it. And I think about that, and I think about the ingredients that people consume in restaurants. And other than perhaps when it comes to meat, in restaurants where they talk about the farm, where they sourced the meat, what other agricultural ingredients are there where the consumer actually gives a shit about where it came from?
And I believe when we talk about coffee and the coffee farm and where the coffee comes from, it's far away from where most of the coffee drinkers and coffee lovers live. And I have been lucky to be sent to Kenya and Tanzania, and later I traveled other coffee origins. So I saw it with my own eyes, how much work goes into
100%.
coffee cultivation. I have been working in the dry mill of our own operation in Tanzania. So you have every morning like several thousand people knocking at the door, whether they come in to pick the coffee. And they will sit on the floor in a warehouse without air conditioning, hand selecting 160-kilo coffee bags after the other. There is no good light. There is no really good air ventilation. You sit on the floor. So under these conditions, they do an absolutely outstanding job. When you see it, and you will always pay more for a cup of coffee because you have seen what's going into a cup of coffee. I do understand because it's far away. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand what goes, how much hard work goes into a cup of coffee. So the many coffee lovers, they don't appreciate this step, or they say coffee is already now too expensive because they haven't seen what's going on and how much work goes into this one cup of coffee. That is maybe something we as an industry should talk more about, but not explaining how hard it is for them to live and show coffee farmers that suffer, but just showing the facts, what it takes to make tasty coffee at origin.
And this is why I'm going through this kind of study of trying to understand what agricultural products are being valued by customers and what are not. Because I'm trying to figure out, how do we solve this problem of getting consumers to give a shit about producers? And Charlie Munger, for those who don't know who Charlie Munger is, he's a very successful He's business partners with Warren Buffett. They own Berkshire Hathaway. And I have become a student of great thinkers in the past decade, and Charlie Munger is absolutely a great thinker. One of his strategies for the way he solves problems is to invert the problem. And so I decided to invert this problem. How do we get people to care less about their coffee? Well, we can't, because they can't care any less about where their coffee comes from. They already don't give a shit. They really don't. Like, at the end of the day, consumers care about consumers when it comes to coffee.
Yep.
And so that leads us to the solution here. How do we make them care about how this could mean more to them, not mean more to the producer or to the cafe? We need the consumer to understand the value of this to them rather than educate them about something that they don't give a shit about. And I wonder if what you've just said is absolutely accurate. We have to give them more insight into how complex this complex agricultural product is and what happens if it goes away.
If it goes away, that will be the disaster, because it's the fuel to kickstart the day of so many people around the globe. Showing how much work goes into it definitely would help. And I believe it's not only something that specialty coffee should talk about or only the commercial industry should talk about. This is like a joint journey we should embark on to talk about what is happening at origin. And while maybe the specialty coffee community prefers talking more about flavors, and for the commercial industry, flavors is maybe less important. But I would say still it is important to them. They drink the coffee because they like it. We need to tell the people in an engaging way what's happening at origin, and just showing the facts, showing the pictures, explaining what's going on. So in all the academies where I gave lectures about the origin, once the people see what's going on at origin, they are like, wow, I did not expect that.
Right.
Everybody is very surprised. I went picking coffee for one day. I was younger back then. In the meantime, I was an ultra trail runner. So I consider myself a very fit person.
Yeah.
But I tell you, after one day picking coffee cherry, it's enough.
Yeah.
It is super hard and it's very steep. It can get very hot. You will get the sunburn for sure. So there's so much work going into it. And what makes it even harder, you cultivate coffee today, it will take 9 months until you harvest that coffee. You will not know how much money you will get for it, but still you need to pay for all the input. So it is a high risk business, and you never know for how much you're going to sell this coffee. So it's hard work, it's insecure and difficult to predict how much money you get. So I love coffee a lot, but the last thing I would do along this value chain is to cultivate coffee. So if we want to make sure commercial coffee or specialty coffee, we still have it in the future, we have to make sure that we secure the supply. And the only way securing the supply is to make sure that we treat the farmers, not only farmers, all the people involved at origin in a fair way, the same way we treat customers in a cafe, or we treat roasters and our employees in a roastery. I think that is really crucial.
I agree. And I think, if people don't mind me saying, we're not doing a great job of treating a lot of people fairly in this industry. I think we've got a long way to go, but I think that we are finally arriving at a point where we recognize that. which is fantastic. It's taken us a long time, and we've finally gotten to the point where we've realized we've got labor shortages, we've got staff unionizing, we've got economic and geopolitical issues coming up, and we need to figure out how to solve these problems while we still have an industry.
I fully agree. So those are like the three bottom line P's: the people, the planet, and the profit. And we need to get them right. And we need to get them right along the entire value chain. I think that's key. And even if we do baby steps at one point along the value chain, let's keep moving, let's keep investing and not looking at each other. If it's only a baby step, telling someone off, let's encourage each other to go all the way and to do it together.
Yeah, I agree. And once again, we've set it up perfectly for the next episode where we're going to talk about the challenging times ahead, geopolitically, economically, from a climate perspective. What are how is all of those things going to shape specialty coffee moving forward? Perfect. Let's do that in the next episode. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.